Listen, it's Indigenous round in the NRL this week. Haven't we had some great Indigenous Australians play our game over the years? Yeah,
100%.
Who do you think is the most influential Indigenous player in the game at the moment? Not the best, the most influential.
I'd say somebody who's recently retired, and I know you've asked for current player, but I think the contribution of Jonathan Thurston, the fact that he's now got that Jonathan Thurston Academy up and running, all up and down the eastern seaboard, and just the development and the growth in him as a person from when he debuted to the Bulldogs to when he ultimately retired, achieved everything that there is to achieve in the game. Superstar.
So well said, but you didn't answer the question. So
I'll give you a current play. Latrell Mitchell, when the NRL launched the season, somewhat controversially, Latrell was the obvious one-out choice for the Indigenous flag. And look, I think of every player in the NRL, he probably entices kids to play rugby league more than anyone else, in the flamboyance that goes with him, and just, you know, that style that you can't coach, and that grand final he won for the Roosters with that pass out the back last year. And yeah, I'm a massive, massive fan. I hope he goes even better for South the rest of the season when he comes back at fullback.
And PK, I know you've got a huge rap on Joel Thompson for different reasons.
Yeah, I go a little bit to Buzz's point when obviously Latrell was the big news over the summer. Everybody was talking about his involvement with the ad, and that follow-on of that was about the anthem and whether they would sing the anthem or not. Then there was obviously the All-Star game and what was going to happen with that. And there was meetings with Peter V'landys, the chairman of the NRL, and Joel Thompson was the voice in that meeting. He was the one that corralled the other Indigenous guys who were in the meeting and spoke most eloquently and really made an impact with what he said. So I think within the Aboriginal players within the game, they're the guys. He's the guy that they tend to lean towards when they're looking for someone to distill what they want to say.
Yeah, right. All right. As I say, Indigenous Australians form such an important part of Rugby League's history and its greatness. Here's a snapshot of that magnificent contribution through the eyes of our own Raging Bull, Gordon Tallis.
Beetson's in for a try!
I never really saw him play, but somehow Arthur lived in my early memory in the unbelievable space, bigger than life. Every time I saw him, he'd ask about my mum and dad, in the dressing room, in the car park, just walking past. How's your mum and dad, Geordie? He always called me Geordie. I wasn't going to argue. Arthur had this warmth about him, a genuine care for us country kids living away from our homes. Well, what a legend.
Matt Bowen!
In Maddie Bowen's hometown, the Cape York Aboriginal community of Hopevale, they had just one game of league all year, and it was between the same two families. And when he was only 15, playing against men, his uncles, his cousins, this kid would become my favourite ever player to watch.
The Bowen arrow is straight through for the bullseye!
Just seeing him, just watching him play made me smile. Where he came from, where he ended up, the heights, playing for his country, his combination with JT. Today, he deserves his own statue in Townsville. Greg Inglis, throw Gene Miles and Mal Meninga into a blender, and that's what you get, GI.
That's the Greg Inglis we know and love.
And what about that image when he stood amongst the great athletes in a tough sport? How he just stood up and stood out. What an athlete. Greg could beat you like no other guy alive.
He's going to put another nail in the coffin, and the goanna crawls. Well, look out, Bill, here goes Renouf. They won't catch him.
When Steve Renouf, from a family of 10 kids in Mergen, came down to the Broncos, quiet and humble, he even wore shoulder pads so he didn't look too small.
Now take a look at him as he crosses the halfway.
The Pearl. He's the only guy I ever played with where the blokes on the inside would say, "Get out of the road," so they could get the ball to Pearl. At the Dragons, there was a group of us. Corey's Corner, me, Ricky Walford the Panther, Jockey Mundine and Jeff Hardy. And of course, Andrew Walker, the most talented guy I've ever played with. We'd get off on our own, muck about, have a laugh. Great times. Ricky was so quietly confident of who he was as a man, such a great leader, and often by what he didn't say.
Mundine goes for the accelerator.
Jock, so gifted to achieve what he has over such a long time. And not just in rugby league. I've never seen a guy love the spotlight so much and perform under those bright lights. Jeff Hardy, such a great team man. We all love playing beside Jeff. Today, the baton has been passed. Passed to the likes of Dane Gagai, passed to Blake Ferguson, to the Fox, Josh Addo-Carr,
Mitchell.
and Latrell Mitchell. We love watching them play, looking out for them, and we always will.
Just a very small snapshot there of some of the great Indigenous Australians to have played rugby league across the generations, and I see that and I just think raw natural ability, like that the great level of skill that they play with is, I think, one of the best parts that they bring to rugby league. Those shots of Maddie Bowen, Gordy summed it up. When I see Matt Bowen play, I just smile.
Ewan McGrady was the same. Ewan McGrady had the same little just skip across the field, speed, big blokes come to try and bash him up, a little gap to smile, and you couldn't get to him. There's
The Cliffy Lions.
dozens of them.
They were tough
Beaver
too.
Menzies.
There was some really tough front rowers. Beetson was tough. You know, Sattler those days, before all that, you know. They weren't just the silky skills.
No, you're absolutely